Welcome. This afternoon's webinar is on improving performance management in your organization with Totara LMS. And this is done by eClass for Learning, and we are a Totara LMS solutions partner. So welcome. My name is Dr. Tammy Frame, and I'm the Chief Education Officer at eClass for Learning. You can contact me through my email or phone number at this number. I'm also recording today's webinar, and everyone who signed up will get a link with the recording. And when I send that, I'll have my contact information at the bottom of the email as well. So if you think of any questions after the webinar, feel free to shoot them my way as well. Okay, today we are using GoToWebinar as our presentation software for the webinar. And there is an area where you can ask questions in chat. So you just have to hit the plus sign and you can type in your message there. I have found it works if everybody's muted. We do have a larger group today, and that way we don't get background noise. But I do really appreciate questions, and I do like them peppered throughout the webinar. I think that makes it a lot more interesting for everybody. So please feel free to post your questions. If for some reason I don't know the answer, I will look it up and email it with the webinar link to everybody in the group following the webinar. So again, I really encourage you to make it interactive and ask questions. Okay. So with that, I'm going to switch gears away from the PowerPoint and move into an actual Totara demo site. And we'll get started. There's a lot to show today. Totara has so many tools to help with performance management. And I'm going to go through a workflow that I sort of recommend to help with performance management in your organization. So step one would actually start with the site administrator, and they would need to make sure that all of the tools that we're going to need in today's demo are turned on and enabled on your site. Okay, and I'm going to show you where those are. Now, it's possible they have been turned off. Maybe when you were first onboarding or starting, those tools weren't needed, or you weren't doing these kinds of things in your organization yet, and you didn't want to confuse users and you had them turned off, which is perfectly normal and acceptable. But now, if you want to use them, we need to make sure that they are enabled. So the site administrator would go to the site administration block, and under advanced features, we're going to scroll towards the bottom because these tools are all grouped towards the bottom, and just double check. So we will want to make sure that Enhanced Catalog is turned on, Dynamic Appraisals is turned on, and by the way, as a site administrator, checked means yes, unchecked means not enabled, and they put what the default was in gray, but it's not an inverse relationship. So just remember, checked means it's enabled, unchecked not enabled. Okay, you'll want to enable the goals. You'll want to enable appraisals. You'll want to enable 360-degree feedback. You'll want to enable learning plans. You'll want to show programs, and you'll want to show certifications. Okay, and then you can hit save changes. All right. So the beginning of my workflow, there are so many tools, and where do you start? I think a good place to start if you're interested in moving into performance management in your organization is to set organizational goals and personal goals that will be measured across the organization and can be tied to learning, to evidence that people upload of their job performance, and so on. So when the goals have been set, the appraisal tab underneath there is my goals. Okay, and so we have a company goal here, And right now, this goal was assigned to me, but that's all the farther I am. And later, my manager could mark it in progress or completed, okay? I also have a personal goal, and these may be written with the manager as well. And I assign this via myself, and it's about recognition of others that I oversee. So I just wrote to do more public recognition of exemplary work done by employees under me. Okay. And these are all made up. But anyway, I have a scale, and you can customize the scale too if you want different things. They could be numbers, they could be different descriptors, and when that's due and what the description of the goal is. Now, when you're writing your goals, my goals allows you to add a personal goal here. To add a company goal, it actually comes from a hierarchy, and I only have one to choose from because that's all we're working on right now in my imaginary demo. But to set up site-wide goals, again, that is done by the site administrator, and it's done under administration, and it's done under hierarchies actually. And there are several hierarchies that really make Totara very powerful, and I consider the hierarchy sort of the engine that makes Totara run. One of them is the organizational hierarchy. So maybe you have different divisions or departments in your company, and you can map those out. You could also put your positions in there. And the reason that that's helpful, and I recommend doing that, is then you can push out learning to different groups. So if I wanted to push out learning to all managers, I could pick that position, and anybody that has that position in the system would have that learning pushed out to them. Same with the organization. If I wanted to say everybody in the district office, let's say, needs a certain kind of training, and that would include 4 departments in that office, and I have that mapped out that way, I could push out learning that way. Likewise, I can also pull reports by any of those groups back too. So when we onboard you as a new client, we work with you on these hierarchies and figuring out how to map them and kind of customize the whole platform to your organization. You can also add competencies, and I've done that, and then the competencies can be tied to all different kinds of things like learning, webinars, evidence of learning, learning plans, appraisals, all kinds of things that can be added to. Then there is one for goals as well, and this is where the company goals go. And you can add, right now I only have one, you can have different goal frameworks. Maybe you have several organizations that you support, and each one has different strategic plan and different goals. You can do that as well. Okay, so that's how we get goals set up. So that would be step 1 in my workflow, is setting up performance goals, both company and personal. And you'll see how that ties into lots of the other tools that we're going to move into next. Okay, one person said my sound went away. Okay, and it's back. Okay, thank you, Lori. Okay, so back just to kind of review what we did so far, in part 1 of the workflow, I would recommend setting up company goals and setting up personal goals. Okay, so those would be the 2 important things that I would look at. Then we're going to move on to step 2. And step 2 might be preparing for the performance review process, okay? And in Totara, that is really considered an ongoing process. There is kind of a summative piece to it, but there's also a formative. Is anybody else having issues with sound? Okay, Lori, one thing you might want to consider doing too if the sound continues to be a problem for you, it sounds like it might be just on your end because no one else is saying that. It might be other people are saying it's okay. It might be that your internet connection is having a hard time and so it comes in and out, and you may want to consider joining with the phone number that was included. That might work a little bit better. Okay, so but thanks. Okay, so goals was part one. Now kind of the performance review process. And so in getting ready for the performance review, you might review an employee's job description, and they may have competencies that have been assigned to them, and we'll see how that looks in a little bit. And that would be mapped out on the competency framework, and then they can be pushed out to different audiences. So you could say, for example, all managers need to have these competencies. You might read over any previous appraisals or performance reviews. So there is an area where from your employees you can read those, and those are kept. You may want to seek feedback from others, and Totara has a tool called 360-degree feedback, and what that allows is for the employee to use a template that has been designed by the organization and assigned to them, and it can be, you can have different ones and push them out to different groups, just like the learning. And then they get to choose people internally in the organization or externally to fill it out. They can also, as an organization, you can decide if it will be tied so they can see who filled it out and what they said, or if it will be anonymous feedback, okay? And that's called 360-degree feedback. So first I'll show you what it looks like. I have a little example, and I've done some here. And then I'll show you how to make it and how to deploy it. So it is under appraisal 360-degree feedback. Now it only occurs, like you will only see 360-degree feedback and appraisals under this tab if one has been assigned to you. So just like learning or learning plans are pushed out to individuals or groups, 360-degree feedback is pushed out, and so are appraisals. And if you don't have an appraisal going right now, or you aren't required to do feedback right now, those pieces won't show up for the user, okay? But I do happen to have a 360-degree feedback survey going right now, so I'll click on it. And it shows that the one that's been assigned for me to do is 21st century skills in the workplace. And 3 out of the 5 people that I have invited have done that. And so if I click here, I can see who has returned theirs and who has not. And I did not check the anonymous option, so I can see who responded in what way, but you can make this anonymous. And then I got to see their feedback. Okay, and another thing that the user can do is they can send out a reminder. So this reminder message will go to everyone you have requested feedback and has not yet responded, which would be Mark Lind and Miles Bailey. These are all fake people, by the way. So okay, so I'll send that out. Now, below that, it's very possible that other people in the organization have asked me to fill out their 360-degree feedback form too. So I already filled out Michael Weber's, but I haven't done Dr. Bailey's yet. So I will do that right now, and I will respond now. And these were profile fields that when I was creating it, I clicked to have show. And there are different question types, and I picked the rating slider type, and I picked that it would start at 1, but you can have it start anywhere, and you get to pick the lowest number and the highest number. So I can go like so, 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 and then I could put some feedback. So, and then submit feedback. Okay. Also, on my learning dashboard, I would have some things that it's telling me. So I had a feedback request from Dr. Bailey and one from Michael Weber, and I completed those. Okay, so it does tell me that. If I have a team, if I'm a manager or supervisor, I like this dashboard. And in this dashboard, I can drill down for different things on the people on my team. And so I could see their goals, but I can also see their 360-degree feedback. And so here I'm looking at Dr. Smith, and they have 1 of 5 done, and she has completed the 2 that she was requested to do. Okay. All right. So that is kind of like the 2,000-foot view of how feedback works. How do we make it? So to make it, you go to Administration, Site Admin, Appraisals, and you go to Manage Feedback. Okay, you create your feedback. You can name it. All right. And in Totara, anything that has a red asterisk is required. Anything that doesn't is not required, so you can skip it. If you want to find out what something is, there's built-in help that you can click on to help you. And then you go to Create Feedback. All right. Then we make the content, and this is pretty fun. You get to choose from all of these different elements, okay? So I started out with user profile information, so they'd know who they're filling it out for or who filled it out for them if it's not anonymous, and I just clicked off a few of these that I thought might be useful and save changes, so that'll be at the top now. And then I did the rating numeric scale, and you put your question. And then you can put, you know, from the lowest to the highest number that you want. If you want to set a default where the slider starts, I stuck mine on 1. And you could either do the text where they type the number in, or you can have the slider. The slider might be nice if some of the things are being observed in real time and they might have a mobile device, and if it's required, and then save changes. Okay, once you create that, it's important to preview and make sure it's exactly like you want, because once we activate it, you cannot make changes. Okay, so that's pretty important. Same with appraisals. So you really got to preview and like it before you deploy. Assignments. So how do we assign this to users then? Okay, and you have a lot of different options. So you could have a specific audience, and again, we set up audiences from users. Let's see, audiences. Okay, and then when you set up an audience, you can decide who's going to be in that, if it's dynamic, like by position or something in their profile, or if it's a group that you pick from a pick list, or how that's going to go. Again, that's all tied to those hierarchies again, so you can pick things that way. We could also do it by organization. So when you mapped that organization, you could pick different groups. It could be by position, okay? So I'll do position, and I'll do all managers are going to have this, okay? And it shows that I have 3 in my, these are the 3 that are going to end up with it. If I'm happy with it, I hit activate now. Now those people will, under appraisal, they're going to see 360 feedback. They're going to see this. They will get to select, when it's new, who they want to have take it and deploy it that way. There will be a box if it's going to be anonymous. And then in the same dashboard, it's going to tell who has requested. Oh, here it is, request feedback. This is how I do it. And then you can also have external reviewers, so you can put in an email address of people outside the system and they don't need a login. You can put a due date. If you put in users, you know, you can pick people like so and request. Okay, and confirm. All right, and then if you are requested, it'll show down here and there'll be a button like I demonstrated before if you have to complete any 360-degree feedback. Okay, any questions on that? Alrighty. Then I would say in my next part of the workflow, now I think you're getting ready to conduct the performance review. So appraisal tool is a nice built-in tool for that. And it has, you can build different workflows, okay, with different stages. So I actually have one that we can look at under latest appraisal. And you can have, you set up these stages and you can have as many as you want. So it is your workflow. So the way I set it up is there would be like a setup where we kind of mutually agree on goals. And we'll go through the setup phase today. And then there's a mid-year review. And then we're going to have an end-of-year review. And I also have, in order for this to be checked off and move ahead, who needs to do it? Okay, so I have both the learner or the employee and their manager has to sign off on both steps. And then at any point you can save a PDF of where you're at and print it out if you want to. And so my manager is Michael Weber. And if I want to go ahead and work on the setup of my appraisal, I can do that. And I click continue. And right here I didn't have any goals, okay. But then under personal development, this is where you can write some things that you're going to do. And then the manager will answer that too. And you'll be able to view each other's comments. We can assign competencies, and you can choose some here that these would be mapped in that competency hierarchy, and then you can pick them from here. I already picked some ahead of time, so I have to write how I'm doing on those competencies. And again, we're at the beginning of the appraisal process, and this is very formative, so it might be okay that I don't have those things yet. And I can write, you know, where I am at today, and the manager can write that too. And there are different question types that you can have against this too. Okay, then when we're done, I would see a summary of everything. And that's how they would do that. And I think there are problems with what I submitted because I didn't answer all of these questions on the competencies, which I won't take time to do right now. So that is how the workflow works for that. To set up an appraisal, it's very similar to the feedback. You go to site administration, you go to appraisals, this time we're going to manage appraisals. And probably the biggest difference is that, we'll look at this example that I did. The biggest difference is that there are stages where 360 feedback is just sort of a one-time event, and there aren't these different beginning, mid-year, end year. You can do it as often as you want. So when you first set it up, you do have a workflow like the other one with these tabs, and you have to name it and give it a description. And then you go to content. And so the first thing we did was we set up the different stages and we just named them. And then we set up the content that's going to go on each of these. Okay. And then the next part of it is the assignments. And we decide, again, this goes back to the hierarchies or audiences of who's going to be assigned to have an appraisal done. And so I picked these groups, and then it was assigned to those people. And then we can also have set up the messaging that's going to go with it, or the auto notifications. So I can say on appraisal activation, for example, I could do it immediately or before or after, or I can make 3 of these if I wanted to do all 3. How much, if I did it before, how much earlier, who's going to receive that notification, what it's going, what the title is, what the text is. Okay, and then that automatically gets sent. And again, you want to preview these appraisals. They're, I believe you can modify an appraisal, but it's kind of a little more difficult because it affects real learners. So you really want to make sure you have the whole flow the way you want it before you activate it. And when you're ready to activate, at the top of the wizard will be activate, and this one already has. We can also close these when they should be done. And I also want to show you the reporting. You could get reports through the report builder, but there is a special reporting area for appraisals. And if you go to reports, we can see a status report. And right now, well, this is sort of a dashboard quick. We have none overdue. We have 6 on target. None have canceled. 0 are complete, and none are inactive. So everybody's been working on theirs. And then a status report. And I can search by these things up here, and I can see where they're from. And right now, only Dr. Smith is on the mid-year review, and she earlier today finished the setup phase, and everybody else is still completing the setup phase, okay, and writing in their things. And that can be exported in a variety of formats too. So that's one type of report. There's also a detail report, and that one gives us more detail. We can look at the different things that are being measured, and we can kind of see where they were rated and any comments, and this can be exported in a variety of formats too. Okay, any questions on that piece? Okay, you guys are a quiet group. After the performance review would be the next step in my workflow, and at that point I think it makes a lot of sense for the employee and the manager to sit down and figure out some personalized professional development around their goals and around their competencies and around their 360-degree feedback that they received, and to help manage their talent as they move forward in the organization. So another important tool that Totara has is the catalog, the Find Learning, which should have courses or programs or certifications. And you can make this audience-based as well. So let's say we're in a hospital, you could have just things for them to pick from that only apply to nurses, let's say. And when they logged in, it would know from their position that they're a nurse, and then it would dynamically generate a course catalog of these different learning activities that they could choose from based on their role, let's say, or an audience, or a position, or where they are in the organization that you've mapped out. So that can be very useful too in creating your learning plans. But then under My Learning, together or by themselves, you can create a learning plan. And learning plans can have all kinds of different things that we'll see in a minute. And they can be written by the manager and assigned to the user, or they can be created by the user. Maybe you and the manager are sitting here together and doing this, or individually by the user, and then sent to the manager for approval or comments or changes. And so when the user wants to create a learning plan, they go to Create New Learning Plan. Okay, and the site administrator can have different templates for them to choose from. And you can also push out templates too, and I'll show you how push out site-wide learning plans that you've already created, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute too. Maybe you're going to have a learning plan for all new managers, and you just push that out to all the new managers. Okay, so again, you pick out the template, you pick out the plan name, and I'll put Learning Plan Practice. And if you want to add a description and when it's going to start and when it's going to complete. And I can't have it complete before it started, so that looks a little better. And Create Plan. And then it has a workflow of tabs that it walks you through. So we just did the overview. And if I want to add courses to this, I can. I don't have to. But from here, I could do Add Courses. And anything that I have access to from that catalog, I would be able to pick. So let's say I'm going to do that one. Okay. And we could say when that's going to be due. So let's say as part of this plan, we're going to have that there. I could also upload evidence once I receive this plan. Maybe I did some of this at a previous job, or maybe in my job I have some things to show that I have learned things about SCORM. I could upload things here too for my manager to see. I can add comments, and I can, if there were any competencies in this course, which haven't been tied to them, I could pick those as well. And I don't have any linked evidence, but I could add a comment here, and my manager can comment back. Okay, and save that. And so as part of the learning plan, I can put courses. And again, when I send this, the way that I have it from a site admin is that my manager will have to approve it. So the next one over is if I want to add any competencies. And again, those would be in the competency framework. And let's see, let's just go here. Oh, I didn't have any there. All right, so I'll just pick a few here. And this was actually for another program, so they're not really competencies. Sometimes we use this for, and we can also have different statuses that you set up just for checking off that people have turned in things. That's what we're doing with another client. But the manager, as they go through, or the system, let's say if it's part of an online course it's tied with, if they get maybe a certain quiz scored, they might be marked as competent. It might be something that's done through observation for the manager. You can change these scales as well, and customize them how you want them to say. Right now we have one course that fits this, and we can also, as the manager and the employee, decide how important these things are, in what order to do them, and comment as well. Objectives. Objectives are a little like goals. They might be sub-goals. They're usually written with the employee and the manager. Complete phase 1 mentoring or something. And then we could write what that is, and those can be part of the learning plan, and they can be measured too. Okay, and then we could say completed or in progress. We could also change these scales if we wanted to. A program is a series of learning, and you have to have them set up, but I have a new employee orientation, so let's say they're a new employee. I want them to do that in this learning plan for the next year too. Then when I have everything the way that I want it, I can activate the plan. Now remember, I created this as myself, and so now, maybe because I'm a site admin, if I had been an employee, it would say this has been sent to your administrator or your supervisor for approval. And if I go to my learning, because I do oversee others, it says my learning plan has been activated. It would also say if I need to approve anybody's here. So right now I don't have any for approval. If you were the manager, they would get an alert here, both in an email and on their dashboard here as well. Then when you're overseeing your team, well, first of all, the learner can go to their learning plans, and they're here, and it shows the status and what's overdue. I've done a lot of demos, so there's quite a few here. Okay, this one is still unapproved, okay, and because I'm a site admin, I believe I can do this, but my supervisor could do this too, and so these could be approved then. All right. If I wanted to see and then I can click on them and I can work through the different parts of my learning plan. I can also see my team, and at a glance, I can see their plans too. So we can see that Dr. Smith has almost completed her medical credential, but it's overdue. And then maybe it came up for renewal and she had done it in the past. Okay, and this was 12/16/2015, but now this one is overdue. So at a glance, I can kind of see how my team is doing. And then I can also see my past appraisals and kind of see progress on those versus the new ones. So I think that leaves a lot of tools that can help with performance management. Just starting again with the workflow one more time, I think it starts with setting company goals and personal goals. And then from there, you might want to start gathering information for the review. And the 360 feedback tool is neat because it involves the employee in getting feedback and analyzing that with you from their peers, internally, externally. And then from there, you might want to use the appraisal process and set up different stages of that. And then from there, after the appraisal, you may want to set up a learning plan that includes many of the elements that are tracked in Totara. Any other questions today? I'm interested in your thoughts or comments or questions that you have. Okay. While you're thinking of those, I'll just point out too what our next webinar is, if you found this useful. We have another one coming up on Totara. And the next one is on www.eclassforlearning.com. Just click on upcoming webinar. And the next one, we're going to talk about what it looks like from a manager perspective and how to make management tasks easier. So how do you keep up to date on your team's activity? How do you know what team members need to complete? What kinds of statistics and reporting do you have available? How do you approve and deny learning requests? And how do you know what they've achieved? How do you delete and approve learning plans from a manager perspective? How do you allocate new courses, competencies, and objectives to learning plans? So that's what we will get into next time from the manager perspective. Okay, let me see here. It looks like we have a couple unanswered questions. Good. And questions. And before, those popped up at me. And I'm looking for those now. Questions. Okay. All right. It looks like the questions were from before and have been answered already. Does anybody have any new questions? All right. With that, if not, I will send the archive. I'd be happy to talk with you individually with your organization and see how these tools might fit in what you're trying to do. And if you think of questions afterwards, feel free to send them to me. Or if you'd like a further demo of any of the things I showed today or other parts of Totara, I'd be happy to do that too. So thanks so much for joining us today, and I look forward to further conversations with you.